You are watching and listening to the Electronic Intifada. I am Jon Elmer. This is the Resistance Report for day 587 of the genocide. It is also day 75 of the total siege on the Gaza Strip. No food, no medicine. If you didn't catch Nora's news report off the top of the show, I highly recommend that as excellent coverage of an absolutely disgusting and devastating situation that the people of Gaza are living through right now. A couple big stories this week were the release, Qassam Brigades released an American soldier, an Israeli soldier who is an American, who is a lone soldier, who was captured from his base in his tank with other soldiers on the Gaza border in the northeast edge of the Gaza envelope. And Qassam released him this week in a good faith gesture to attempt to get the Americans to engage in negotiations to open the crossings. They understood that those crossings would be opened based on the release of that soldier. It was unprecedented and historic release for no prisoner exchange. And I think that we are seeing right now that that good faith gesture has been essentially ignored by the Americans. They're duplicitous and criminal in this, and they're responsible for it in many critical ways. An article in Haaretz this week talked about how U.S. funding has covered 70% of Israel's war-related spending. And as we know, I reported a number of times late last year that the first year of the war alone, the United States gave roughly $23 billion to the Israelis. And in Haaretz this week, a foreign ministry official, Israeli foreign ministry official, said, if the U.S. chose to brandish the whip and tie aid to political demands, it would be very hard for us to resist. That's the problem with our dependency. At the moment of truth, the American president can simply say, stop the war, period. And that's what Qassam was hoping for in their attempt to alleviate the suffering, mass starvation, and famine in Gaza. And that soldier was a soldier from the Golani Brigades 51st Battalion. And the Golani Brigade 51st Battalion is who are in these operations that I'm going to be showing you throughout this show. So it's worth noting that. So let's look at the maps. As always, we got these maps updated again. The noose is tightening around the civilian populations, as is the intention of the Israelis. We're now at 70% no-go buffer zone. Again, the purple is the buffer zone. The orange is the evacuation displacement orders, the ethnic cleansing orders, the erasure orders in this case, because we're particularly talking about southern Gaza. If we look at that map to zoom in on the south, we can see that Rafah has been completely that the population has been pushed out of Rafah completely. And I have been talking recently about the Morag corridor. That is the corridor that runs between Rafah and Khan Yunis. So I just wanted to show you with this next map. This map is from 2003. And just to show you that this is the situation as of October 24th, 2003. This is when I was reporting in Rafah on this siege. And you can see the way that the Morag corridor is marked on this map. It is the red lines that marks through. It's called a security zone during the Israeli occupation when the settlers were inside Gaza. And you can see that corridor was devoid of people all along. The purple on the coast, that's 𝐓𝐡𝐞, that was an Israeli settlement. And that area just off Khan Yunis is Mawasi. And that's where the civilian population in Gaza has been corralled. And so these military operations are following a historic understanding and order, and they're moving through areas that have already been long ago established as corridors. And you can see the Egypt buffer zone there on the map to the left. That is the Philadelphia corridor that has been expanded. And of course, we know about the Netzarim corridor that divides northern Gaza around Wadi Gaza. So these are already established routes. And I just wanted to bring this map in because I know I've been talking about that for a number of weeks now, about the Morag corridor, and saying it's not a military accomplishment to take the Morag corridor because this corridor has existed in this way. This is how Israel controlled the territory from 1967 until 2005 when they left. So the focus of the fighting is, again, it's on the Golani Brigade 51st Battalion, and it's the Rafah Brigade still fighting. The Rafah Brigade that we were told in the summer had been defeated by Israel. We know that they lie about those declarations going back to November 2023 when they said they had operational control over Beit Hanun. Beit Hanun is still fighting. The Rafah Brigade has 4 battalions in the Rafah Brigade, and this show is going to focus on the Eastern Battalion. And you can still see the area that they're going to be fighting on this map, where you see Sahadin Street Road, the main highway that runs north-south through Gaza, up into the Morag corridor, because the use of the Morag corridor is to allow Israeli troops to access the center of the territory. And then jump off from that, which is what they do from the Philadelphia corridor. We know they do that in Tel Sultan in Western Rafah. That's where Yahya Sinwar was killed, fighting in Tel Sultan. And so in the Morag corridor, it brings Israeli troops into the center of Eastern Rafah, and that is what we are going to focus on today. These operations, Qassam named them the Gates of Hell, and we'll remember that that's also comes from Trump. Trump said that if the captives were not released, that they would bring the gates of hell down on Gaza. And the resistance has used these Israeli and American terms for the fight and has turned them on their head, like iron swords became the breaking the swords ambush, and this is the gates of hell operation. So what we're going to be seeing in this first one is these are complex ambushes, well executed, tactically executed. This is a tunnel-borne operation. All 3 of these operations are going to be based on tunnel operations, and they're targeting the Yahalom unit, which is Israel's anti-tunnel unit. They are auxiliary to the right now in Rafah, auxiliary to the Golani Brigade's 51st Battalion. And so we're going to be watching the Israelis advance from the Morag corridor, and they're going to engage in a firefight with the Palestinian resistance is going to engage, the Qassam is going to engage them in a firefight and lure them into the building to target them from a detonated tunnel booby trap. So let's take a look at number 4, the first one, Gates of Hell, part 1. You can see on the screen, Gates of Hell. We have a commander here with a sign behind him that says Gates of Hell, and he says the leadership of Al-Qassam issued the following order to launch Gates of Hell series of operations. We assure you that Rafah, after a year of fighting this battle, that we are still dispelling your illusions and taking the lives of your soldiers. Let the gates of hell open wide. Let every home and every alley in Rafah become a ticking bomb that claims the lives of your best soldiers. That's what this commander is saying on screen here. And now we're going to see again, drone footage. We've seen this all throughout the war. And you can see the Morag corridor line there, and that is the line of advance that the Israelis are going to take. The commander says, after studying the enemy's movements and behavior and advances in southern from the Morag corridor, the location of the ambush has been selected and identified. The leadership has confirmed the selection of targets and the direction to eliminate them. In the next video, you're going to see a team of Qassam fighters lift off a mattress here and emerge from the tunnels. We're seeing this from a GoPro camera on their head. We're also going to see a camera in the room, but here's the fighters emerging. And this is the thing that we've seen all throughout this war. There's the backup camera that shows the fighters in the room, but they've given us this front row seat to the resistance. And these operations are really going to show you that. you can see this is the GoPro camera on the helmet or on the head of one of the fighters, and that shows you the fighter, the whole squad emerging from the room, which you can see on the next image as well. The next video, yeah, that's them emerging, and again, you can see the way that the backup camera, the car backup camera, has been used in these operations. Again, we've seen this all throughout the war. Ingenuity here, and in the destroyed building, you can see the rubble around this building. The Israelis believe this building has been cleared. They have set up a position next to this building, and the fighters emerge from the tunnels and are able to execute these operations. So if we watch this next slide here, you're going to see the fighters move to the door and hit an Israeli patrol that's walking by. All through this video, you can hear the screams of the soldiers as they're getting fired upon. You can watch these uncensored videos on my Twitter account, which is just my name at Twitter. Maybe tomorrow I can throw that up on the ticker at some point. But yeah, they're screaming all through this, and then they slide back down into the tunnel. So you see the fighters sliding down in the tunnel. There's both the cameras, one on the head and one in the room. As the fighter disappears, this next slide shows you them firing out the door at the Israeli patrol. So they're luring the Israelis into this position, into this house. And you can see in the next slide them exiting down the tunnel, firing at the last for good measure. And this is the same. So you're seeing the helmet, you're seeing the GoPro camera on the head of the fighter, and then you're seeing the in-house camera, which is going to be key to this next one, because the Israelis will then send in a drone and their canine units that will arrive as a platoon. And I have pixel masked the Israeli soldiers because we have to follow community guidelines on YouTube, and we do that very faithfully, even though we don't think that they're justified, because we've, as everybody knows, we've been watching a live stream genocide where it's fine to kill Palestinians regularly on our phones and on our on various forms of media, but they're very sensitive to the Israeli soldiers. So let's take a look at this this next slide, the next video. So you can see the drone. This is their Avada's drone. This is they come in case with these drones. This is one of the major innovations of this war for the Israelis, that they use these drones to case buildings. And they use them all the time. So they send them in. They don't have to send their fighters in. You can see the canine looking around in here. He's got a camera on his back. And like I said, we have to edit this out. But in the original video, these guys walk into the room one after another. And then Qassam detonates, as you can see there, destroying the camera. A successful operation that killed 2 Yahalom soldiers and wounded 4 others. And you can see the 𝐓𝐿 canine units. This is the canine units, according to the Israelis, have lost 45 of these working dogs in the battle in Gaza. He's got a camera and a radio on the dog, and they can communicate with their handlers. And so the dog apparently doesn't find anything in this room. So the soldiers come in one after another, and then the Qassam detonates the tunnel booby trap, and successful operation Gates of Hell Part 5. And this continues, this operation continues. The fighter says at this point here, we've hit you in one place and now we're coming for you in another. The fighters withdraw down into the tunnel and then move across the street and move to the reinforcements that come after the detonation of the house. The Israelis send reinforcements. You can see a Merkava tank here coming, and Qassam has now crossed the street and are on the other side. So this is the way the tunnels are used for 360-degree coverage. The Israelis believe they're in front of them, and you see an elevated Yasin 105 strike built. Anti-tank weapon built in Gaza, as I always point out, and no active protection on that one. We are seeing now a D9 bulldozer coming in to help extract, and he's going to be hit as well. So detailed, complex ambush, well planned, well executed by the Rafah brigade. who the Israelis keep telling us are defeated and keep sending us these series of operations that are remarkable. And people who've been following our show for the last year and a half had known the Rafah Brigade have carried out these ambushes consistently for the entire year. The battle in Rafah began on May 7th of last year, so they've been fighting for more than a year. We can see this next slide is the tank, the tank being hit by the Yasin that we just saw. And the scene ends with the commander saying, "And finally, our message to our people and to the free people across the Gaza Strip, and especially to the people of Rafah, of steadfastness. Today, the branch in the tree stands before its deeply rooted origin, declaring, we promise and pledge we will remain here on our land, defending you and defending our homeland." So message from Qassam, from Gates of Hell Operation number 1. There's going to be 3 of these operations that we're going to watch today. The next one is Qassam. Again, the IDF will advance through the Morag corridor, as we see the setup here. And they're going to be hit from the warehouse that you can see. Again, they're marking the Morag corridor, and the orange line is the way they advanced from that corridor into those 2 buildings. We've edited out the soldiers who are walking to take up this position. They've got mattresses on their heads. They're walking in to hold this position next to the warehouse. You can see the number of them. They number, according to the field report, there's a dozen at least in this one position advancing from the Morag corridor, which allows them to do that. So the corridor is useful in that purpose, but taking the corridor was not a military accomplishment for the Israelis. If we look at the next slide, we can see the Yassins here. This is the building that the Israelis have set up in. And now we're going to see the Qassam archers with their thermobaric tandem warhead Yassins that are going to move through this already bombed and destroyed warehouse right up and attack that position, that Israeli position in the building. The audio track on this that you can watch on Twitter is all gunfire. They're all emptying their clips, all the shooters. There's a platoon of Qassam fighters here, all emptying. You can see the bullets hitting off the concrete. And then this is an F7. This is a fragmentation warhead. So it's an anti-personnel warhead that we've seen all throughout the war. Again, they're using appropriate weapons. They're using the same weapons that they would be using if this operation was on the first day of the war. So they fire on this building, and then they're going to move back to the tunnel and go back down into the tunnel, luring the Israelis into this warehouse in the same way that they lured them into Gates of Hell Part 1. This is Gates of Hell Part 2. And this operation was on May the 7th. So we can look at the next slide, and you'll see the same thing as the last one. The drone comes in. These are these Avadas drones with the propeller guards that work inside buildings. And you're going to see the K9, 2 K9 come in here, and you can see they don't seem to be able to smell the explosives that are set up for the Israelis. And I think that this is probably a product of the Israelis having so heavily bombed these areas that the dogs aren't able to distinguish between the explosive residues from the Israeli weapons and from the Palestinians. You can see the way they run out like that. They're not they don't usually do that. In any case, we watch 9 soldiers enter into this particular ambush site before they are again detonated by Qassam. The camera itself is destroyed, showing you here the medevac helicopter. The Israelis admitted 2 more killed in this. There was 9 killed and 50 wounded in this series of operations. So if we, I'm one page behind here, but yeah, so we're going to go to number 3 here. Again, we're going to set up, we'll get drone footage. You can see the destroyed Rafah. More than 80% of Rafah's buildings were destroyed at the end of 2014. So before this ceasefire, before this part of the war. Again, we have to edit this out, but the Qassam has surveillance within spitting distance of these Israeli soldiers in this position. They also have closed circuit television cameras on them. We have seen Qassam use these cameras. The cameras are set up in the rubble The fighters are moving through the rubble. The tunnels are in the rubble. And they're able to carry out these operations. These operations happen because the Israelis, for the first time, are moving out of the buffer zone and into the built-up areas, something I've been telling you about for weeks when people said, why weren't there operations? And it's because the Israelis weren't moving out of the buffer zone. Here we see a built-up area, and they're immediately getting hit. So that was hit with an F7. Again, that's the fragmentation warhead. You can see the building burn with that first shot, and then there's going to be 2 more RPG shots. You just saw one, and there's the second one, anti-tank weapon, and he's showing us that from his GoPro on his head, but also we're seeing the same building being hit by the closed circuit TV camera. So just remarkable detail in these operations on top of the effectiveness of the operation. You can see the building is burning, and the Qassam fighters themselves are talking about how this is burning, which you can again watch on the uncensored version of it. 2 more soldiers at least were killed in this operation. This is the first part of Operation Gates of Hell. This is part 1. Part 2, this is in Al-Tanur, Rafah, also in Eastern Rafah. So it's still the Rafah Brigade. We're seeing Eastern Rafah Battalion of the Rafah Brigade. You can see the soldiers moving into position. The Qassam fighters have eyes on them. And when this Qassam fighter detonates this, he says that and the Rafah Brigade will remain a hell for invaders as he presses the button. Detonating the IED, it's an anti-personnel IED, so we know these to be television or radia IEDs. This is the Israeli armored reinforcements coming. I had to edit out the soldiers on the side of the road, but they go down. Clearly seen these operations are successful. And the Israelis have to admit to these operations because there's multiple medevac helicopters for each of these. So all for the last 2 weeks in Rafah, there's been reports of medevac helicopters landing constantly. And that's what we're seeing here. The original field report of this operation talked about 7 soldiers being in that position. And again, you can see the detonation of that filling the view of the closed circuit TV camera. So these are all operations against the Golani Brigade's 51st Battalion, which is the same battalion that the soldier was, the lone soldier, prisoner of war, was released from by Qassam just this week as well. Which we will see after this. Qassam's handover was not like the previous handovers of captured soldiers. They just did it with a single photograph. And here you can see Qassam shadow unit. We've seen the shadow unit. This is in Khan Yunis. He was handed over. So the soldier was captured in northeast Gaza across from Beit Hanun. And he was released in Khan Yunis. And we usually see these fighters, these Qassam Shadow Unit fighters, holding Tavor Israeli weapons, Israeli-made weapons that were captured in battle. We watched, I showed you a video several months ago of an operation from the 2014 war where Qassam came out from a tunnel at Nahal Oz and captured one of the X-95s, the bullpup rifles, from the Israeli soldiers, but we saw many more of them in the Rafah and Khan Yunis handovers where we saw captured weapons. And here Qassam is holding a foreign weapon, Steyr 𝐓𝐴𝐽, the AUG, known better just as the 𝐓𝐴𝐽. It's also a bullpup rifle, which is showing that they are getting these weapons. They probably got these weapons a decade ago through the tunnels. So this war has shown us that Qassam has used its indigenously built weapons, but we have seen moments throughout the war where the tunnels have played a key role in building up the army over the last 2 decades. So this is the handover of that soldier, and it caught people's attention because the Israelis are constantly watching these details. It's the only time they actually watch what's going on in Gaza. So Qassam is readily giving these, intentionally sending these messages to the Israelis. So that's southern Gaza, and I just wanted to show you the map in northern Gaza because it has tightened as well in northern Gaza. And there was a number of operations this week in northern Gaza, particularly in 𝐓𝐡𝐞 east of Gaza City. 𝐓𝐡𝐞 is synonymous with resistance, and as soon as the Israelis moved out of the buffer zone and into 𝐓𝐡𝐞, they were hit. They were hit with half a dozen ambushes this week. More than 20 soldiers were injured in these operations. We're not quite sure if the Israelis are still being honest about their casualties at this point, but the field reports matched. The field reports by the Israeli military matched the field reports for Qassam in these operations. There was a number of these ambushes that were taken in northern Gaza as well. Saraya al-Quds carried out a couple operations in 𝐓𝐡𝐞. They also fired rockets from Jabalia. And the Qassam Brigades Beit Hanun Battalion carried out a number of operations, 3 operations against the Israelis in the northeast corner in the buffer zone as well this week. And just to put a final note on this, I want to show you this graph from The Economist, who, along with The Lancet, did a study on the casualty counts in Gaza, which anyone who's been watching this war knows that these casualty counts have been low. The hospital system has been completely destroyed. The systems for finding people in the rubble, like civil defense, they don't have heavy diggers to get people out of the rubble. People are moving so often, displaced so often, that it's difficult to know exactly who's in any given house, and now who's in any given tent, because now the Israeli massacres, more than 200 civilians killed in the last 2 days. Many of them are in tents. That's who they're hitting right now. And I just wanted to put a note on this because our sense of scale has been just so blown away in this the scale of this genocide. I just want to say that since the ceasefire collapsed on March the 18th, officially collapsed with Israel's massacre on March 18th, more people in Gaza have died than died in the entire 2014 war, more than died in Cast Lead in 2008, 2009, more than died during the second Intifada in Gaza. That's just since March 18th. So more have died since in any given time period of war since the occupation of Gaza in 1967, just since May 18th. So I just wanted to put a point on that to end the note on that. On the Operation Gates of Hell ambushes, there still may be more. There was 2 other Gates of Hell ambushes in the field reports that we may see coming up, but those 3 operations show you that the Rafah Brigade is still ready to fight, and each of the territorial brigades are all in the same position. Once the Israelis push into those areas, they will be met with resistance. The Israelis have promised that they are going to move into these areas. They intend to start the war back up once Trump returns from his gaudy trip to the slovenly Arab governments that are part of his grift. And if that is the case, we're going to see much more resistance in the coming days. So that is the resistance report for day 587 of this war.